I should be dead. That's not me being dramatic, that's just a fact. When you've OD'd 3 times, woken up in places you don't recognize, and have had more near-death experiences than birthdays celebrated, you start to think you were either blessed or cursed with an unkillable streak. But I got out. Somehow, I made it out of the mess, and I live to tell this story. Not because I think I deserve redemption, but because some of the shit that happened to me is too wild not to share. I started using in high school, like a lot of kids in my town. Small place, no opportunities, and a family situation that made me want to crawl out of my own skin. It began with pills, Adderall, Oxy, whatever I could get my hands on. Then I got introduced to the harder stuff. Cocaine at first, then meth, then the big bad, heroin. I was a lost cause by 20, but I was still functioning enough to convince people otherwise. One night, I woke up in a bathtub filled with ice. Yeah, that's some urban legend horror story type shit, but it happened. I was in a motel, no memory of how I got there, and my side was killing me. First thought? Someone stole my kidney. I scrambled up, expecting a giant stitched up scar, but all I found was a deep bruise. Turns out, I had collapsed at a party, and some drugged out genius thought the best way to wake me up was to dunk me in a tub of ice. Great medical professionals, my crowd. But that wasn't even the worst of it. The worst was waking up on a train. Not like a normal commuter train, some cargo train, rattling through the middle of nowhere. I had no clue where I was or how I got there. All I knew was that I had a used syringe in my pocket, a busted lip, and a text from a number I didn't recognize saying, "You owe me." To this day, I have no idea who sent that text or what I owed them. I spent hours walking along the tracks before I found a gas station and managed to hitchhike back to town. I never figured out if someone put me on that train as a joke, as a punishment, or if I had done it to myself. Then there was the time I got locked inside a funeral home. That one still freaks me out. I had broken in, don't ask why, my high self had its reasons, and somehow passed out inside. When I woke up, the place was dark, and I was surrounded by bodies. And not in caskets, either. Just out, waiting to be embalmed. I screamed so loud that the cops who found me thought I was a ghost. To be fair, I probably looked like one. I was pale, malnourished, and had track marks up my arms. Instead of arresting me, one of the cops actually drove me home. Told me I needed to get my shit together. I laughed in his face. I wish I had listened. My rock bottom wasn't even an overdose. It was the day I realized no one was looking for me anymore. For years, I had people trying to get me into rehab, checking up on me, offering help. But the last time I OD'd, no one came to the hospital. No one called to ask if I was okay. Not my family, not my old friends. I had pushed everyone so far away that they finally just stopped. And that was when it hit me, I wasn't some tragic addict people were rooting for. I was just another junkie who had burned every bridge. That was the day I walked into a church of all places and begged for help. I didn't know what else to do. The pastor there didn't judge me. He didn't throw scripture at me or tell me I needed Jesus. He just listened. And then he drove me to rehab himself. I wish I could say recovery was easy after that, but it wasn't. I relapsed 3 times. I almost didn't make it through detox. But I did. And now, I've been clean for 6 years. I don't tell my story for pity. I don't want anyone feeling sorry for me. But I tell it because I know there's someone out there who thinks they're too far gone. Someone who thinks they're past saving. And I need them to know that they're not. Because if I can come back from that mess, anyone can. Alright, so let me tell you how I ended up in prison over the dumbest thing possible and somehow made it even worse once I got there. I wasn't some big-time criminal or anything, just a dude who made a series of terrible choices and had a knack for finding himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. But when you're dumb and desperate, it's amazing how quickly things can spiral. So, back when I was 24, I was broke as hell, couch surfing between friends' places, and working a dead-end job that paid just enough to keep me in gas station burritos and cheap beer. My boy Ray, who's got the IQ of a cinder block but always has big ideas, came up with this genius plan to rob a laundromat. Yeah, you heard me. A laundromat. Like the place where people wash their clothes and might have, what? A couple rolls of quarters? But Ray swore up and down that they kept thousands in the back because people used cash to get change. Easy money, he said. Spoiler alert, it was not easy money. We break in at like 2 a.m. Ray's got a crowbar, I've got a duffel bag, and we're in and out in 10 minutes. Except we weren't. Turns out, this laundromat had a silent alarm and cameras, and within minutes, the cops were swarming the place. Ray takes off like a damn Olympic sprinter, leaving me holding the bag, literally. I run, too, but I have exactly zero stamina and immediately trip over a laundry cart like a freaking cartoon character. They slap the cuffs on me, and boom, I'm booked for breaking and entering, attempted theft, and some other nonsense they tacked on just to make sure I got the full treatment. Fast forward a few months, and I'm standing in front of a judge. Public defender's basically reading off a script, and the judge is looking at me like I'm a mosquito buzzing around his face. Since I had some priors, minor stuff, mostly dumb fights and drunk nonsense, they decided to make an example out of me. 2 years. 2 years. For quarters and a broken laundromat window. You'd think I took out Fort Knox. Now, let me tell you, prison ain't fun. Shocker, right? I got dumped in a medium security facility, but let's be real, there's nothing medium about prison. It's just levels of how much you might get stabbed. My cellie was this dude named T-Bone. He was about 6'5", built like a refrigerator, and had this habit of cracking his knuckles every time he talked, which made every conversation sound like he was seconds away from strangling you. First thing he tells me is, I don't snore, but if I wake up and you're looking at me, I'm breaking your jaw. Solid introduction. I tried to keep my head down, but that's not really how it works in prison. You gotta have an angle, a hustle, something that makes you valuable or at least keeps people from messing with you. Since I was good at fixing stuff, I started repairing radios, fans, and whatever other broken junk people had. That got me in good with some of the older guys, but also meant I owed favors, and owing favors in prison is a great way to wake up missing teeth. Then there was the incident with the hooch. See, prison hooch is this disgusting toilet wine that some guys brew out of fruit, sugar packets, and whatever else they can get their hands on. Nasty as hell, but people pay good stuff for it, cigarettes, commissary snacks, even protection. I made the mistake of taking a cut from the wrong batch. Some dude named Lil D, ironic name, because he was built like a wrecking ball, accused me of watering it down. Now, I didn't even make the damn stuff, I just helped transport it, but Lil D wasn't hearing it. He comes at me in the yard, and I do what any reasonable person does when faced with impending bodily harm. I panicked and swung first. Bad move. Next thing I know, we're full on scrapping, and since I was the one who threw the first punch, I got thrown in the hole for a month. Solitary confinement is the absolute worst. Nothing to do but stare at a wall and talk to the little bugs crawling around for entertainment. I think I wrote an entire rap album in my head just to stay sane. After that, I made a promise to myself, no more dumb choices. When I finally got out, I had this grand plan to go straight, get a job, and stay the hell away from people like Ray. But life had other ideas. Nobody wants to hire an ex-con, especially one who went to prison for robbing a laundromat. Turns out, that's not impressive to employers. So, I started doing odd jobs under the table, fixing cars, cleaning gutters, whatever I could get. One day, I'm working at this auto shop, and guess who strolls in like nothing happened? Freaking Ray. Now, any normal person would have told him to kick rocks, but Ray had that same stupid grin and an even stupider idea. Yo, I got a way we can make some real money. I wish I could say I walked away, but let's be real, I had bills to pay, and stupid decisions have always been my specialty. But that's a story for another time. It started as a harmless dream. A man I had never met, tall, dark hair, sharp jawline, piercing blue eyes. He felt familiar, though I was sure I had never seen him before. In the first dream, he stood across a busy street, watching me. In the second, he sat next to me on a park bench, smiling like he knew a secret. By the third, he was whispering my name. Each time, I woke up feeling strange, like the dream wasn't really a dream. Like he had actually been there. Then, one day, he was. It was a normal day at work. Emails, meetings, mindless small talk. Then I saw him. Standing in the lobby. The man from my dreams. Same blue eyes, same confident stance, exactly as I had seen him, down to the smallest detail. He looked straight at me, his lips curling into a slow, knowing smile. My stomach dropped. This wasn't coincidence. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe I had seen him somewhere before and my brain just recycled his face. But then he walked toward me. And as he passed, he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. "Took you long enough to find me." I froze. By the time I turned around, he was gone. That night, I dreamed of him again. Only this time, he spoke to me. "You're not remembering yet," he said, tilting his head. "But you will." I felt my pulse spike. "Remember what?" He just smiled. Then, suddenly, the dream shifted. I was in a different place. A place I recognized but couldn't name. A house with a red door. A forest behind it. The feeling that I had been there before. And then, in the dream, he touched my wrist. When I woke up, there was a bruise there. Part 5, the truth I didn't want to know. I had to find him. I had to know who he was. So the next morning, I searched. Everywhere. I asked around the office, no one else had seen him. I checked security footage, there was nothing. It was like he had never been there. But as I was leaving work, I got a text. "Unknown number, stop looking. You already know where to find me." My hand shook as I typed back. "Who are you?" The reply came instantly. "You already know." I didn't sleep that night. Because deep down, I knew he was right. I just didn't want to remember why. Waking up in the wrong place. The first thing I felt was a pounding headache. The second was fear. I opened my eyes to find myself lying on a couch in a dimly lit living room. The air smelled like stale alcohol and something else, something unfamiliar. My head was spinning, my mouth dry as sandpaper. I had no idea where I was. The last thing I remembered was being out with friends at a bar downtown. Drinks, music, laughing, then nothing. Now, I was in someone else's house, and I had no memory of how I got here. I sat up slowly, trying to make sense of my surroundings. The house was too clean. Too perfect. Like something out of a catalog. There were no personal photos. No clutter. The kind of place that looked lived in but had no soul. My phone was missing. So were my shoes. A single water bottle sat on the coffee table next to me. Unopened. Had someone left it for me? Something about it felt off. I stood up, legs unsteady, and made my way to the front door. It was locked. Not just locked, deadbolt from the outside. My stomach twisted. Who the hell locked me in? I heard movement. A faint shuffling sound coming from somewhere down the hall. I held my breath. I wasn't alone. A shadow moved at the end of the hallway, just out of sight. Someone was watching me. I forced myself to speak, my voice hoarse. "Hello?" Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. A man stepped into view. Tall, well-dressed, too calm. He wasn't some disheveled creep or a drunken stranger. He looked like he belonged here. And he was smiling. My pulse hammered in my chest. He said my name. Like we had met before. I had never seen him in my life. I asked him what the hell was going on, but he didn't answer. Instead, he tilted his head and said, "You don't remember, do you?" My blood went cold. He pulled out my phone. I reached for it, but he held it just out of reach, shaking his head. Then, he turned the screen toward me. A video started playing. It was me. Laughing, smiling, leaning into him like we were old friends. The video showed me getting into his car willingly. I looked happy. But I had no memory of it. My breath came in sharp gasps. Had I been drugged? Hypnotized? Manipulated? He must have seen the panic in my eyes because his smile widened. "Don't worry," he said softly. "This is exactly where you wanted to be." I bolted. I ran straight for the window, slamming into it so hard the glass cracked. But the last thing I heard before everything went black again was his voice, calm, patient, waiting for me to understand. "You always come back." The aftermath. I woke up in my own bed the next morning. My phone was on my nightstand. No messages. No videos. My shoes were neatly placed by the door. Like nothing had ever happened. But sometimes, late at night, I get the feeling I was never meant to leave. And I wonder, what happens when he decides to bring me back? It started with something small. A plain brown box sitting on my doorstep. No return address, no markings, just my name typed neatly on the label. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe a gift from a friend? Maybe I had ordered something and forgot? Inside was a single white envelope. No letter, no markings, just completely empty. Weird. I tossed the box in the trash and forgot about it. A week later, another one arrived. The packages keep coming. At first, they were harmless. Small, empty boxes. No messages, no explanation. Then they started getting weirder. One package contained a single red ribbon, folded neatly. Another had a Polaroid of my apartment door, taken from the outside. The next? A key. I didn't know what it opened. I was starting to get scared. Someone was watching me. I checked my online orders, my bank statements. Nothing was missing. No one I knew had sent anything. I told myself it was some elaborate prank. Maybe a friend messing with me? Then, one night, I heard a soft knock at my door. I checked the peephole. No one was there. But in the morning, another package had arrived. This time, inside was a small glass perfume bottle. It smelled exactly like me. That's when I realized whoever was sending these packages had been close enough to know what I smelled like. The final package. I called the police. They didn't care. There's no crime in receiving packages, the officer told me. So I set up a camera outside my door. The next morning, another package was waiting. I rushed to check the footage. At 3:12 a.m., someone walked up to my door. They wore a dark hoodie, head down, moving slowly, deliberately. Then, just before they left, they turned to the camera. And smiled. I hit pause. My stomach dropped. It was my own face staring back at me. The truth that I wish I never knew. I tore open the new package, hands shaking. Inside was a flash drive. I plugged it in, heart pounding. A video file. It showed me, sleeping in my bed. Filmed from inside my apartment. Then, my voice, whispered. You're almost ready. I slammed the laptop shut. I didn't sleep that night. And when I checked my security camera again in the morning, the footage was gone. The aftermath. The packages stopped after that. But some nights, I wake up and swear I hear someone in my apartment. When I check my front door in the morning, there's nothing there. But sometimes, I get the feeling someone's still watching. Waiting. For what? I don't want to find out. I needed a break from everything: work, social media, life in general. A quiet weekend alone in a remote Airbnb sounded like the perfect reset. I found a listing that seemed too good to be true: a charming little cabin in the woods, far from the city, with glowing 5-star reviews. The hosts, David and Marla, had a reputation for being super accommodating. Guests raved about how they went above and beyond to make people feel comfortable. I booked it immediately. I had no idea how much I'd regret it. The moment I arrived, something felt off. The cabin was exactly like the pictures: cozy, clean, well-stocked. But as I unpacked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. At first, I brushed it off. Just nerves. Then, small things started to feel wrong. The coffee maker was already on, even though I hadn't touched it. The towels were damp, as if someone had just used them. A glass on the counter had a lipstick stain on it, but I was alone. That night, as I was getting into bed, I noticed a red light blinking in the corner of the room. It was a camera. My stomach dropped. I started searching the cabin, heart pounding. I found 2 more cameras, one in the living room, disguised as a smoke detector, and another in the bathroom vent. The worst part? They were all facing me. Someone had been watching me the entire time. I grabbed my phone and called the Airbnb hosts. No answer. Straight to voicemail. Then I got a text. From the hosts. We hope you're comfortable. Let us know if you need anything. I felt sick. They knew I had found the cameras. I ran to the front door, ready to leave. It wouldn't open. The lock was jammed from the outside. Panic started setting in. I needed to get out. I grabbed a chair and smashed one of the windows. As I climbed through, my phone buzzed again. Another text. We really wish you hadn't done that. My whole body went cold. I ran to my car. That's when I saw them. Standing at the edge of the woods, watching me. David. Marla. Smiling. Like they were enjoying this. I jumped into my car and sped down the dirt road. But my gas tank was lower than it should have been. Had they siphoned my gas? I barely made it to the nearest town. I pulled into a gas station, shaking, and called the police. When they arrived, we drove back to the cabin. It was empty. No cameras. No furniture. Like no one had ever lived there. The Airbnb listing? Deleted. David and Marla? No records of them. Anywhere. To this day, I don't know who they really were, or what they wanted. But sometimes, when I'm home alone, I still feel like I'm being watched. And I wonder if they ever really stopped.